Released by Saknoth in 2001 on the PlayStation 2, Shadow Hearts would be the first game in a sequel series to Koudelka. Written and directed by Matsuzo Machida, the game would establish a supernatural setting for the world prior to World War I. For story, the game features Yuri, a brash young man with the ability to turn into various demons alongside 5 other party members, though only 3 can be fielded in battle at a time. For gameplay, the game features an overworld map across China and England in which the player may visit various towns, dungeons, and points of interest, talking, exploring, and fighting in random battles. For combat, the game features standard turn-based fare, though every action usage is tied to a judgment ring system, in which a quick-time mechanic is used to determine effectiveness. Yuri must manage a malice level based on the amount of monsters defeated along the game, and invest soul energy into unlocking more powerful forms to turn into. The game also features multiple side quests, a monster arena, New Game Plus, and an alternate, albeit non-canon, ending. Keep in mind I have no proficiency in Chinese, so I apologize for any names I mispronounce. The story only gets larger from here, so let's cut it down to size with a recapitation. As the game begins, it's 1913 France as we see a news report of a traveling priest brutally murdered and torn to pieces while his daughter, who was traveling with him, was also nowhere to be found. Later that year, that same girl is on the Trans-Siberian Express being escorted to Japan. A well-dressed man now makes his way through the train straight for the girl, easily killing every soldier in his way, as a demon familiar also protects him from any of their gunfire. The girl recognizes the man, who introduces himself as Roger Bacon, but they are interrupted by a young man in a long coat who seems unafraid of Roger. As Roger sends his little demon towards the rude hero, it slices off one of his arms, but he catches it with his other hand, easily crushing and killing it, while casually picking up his dropped arm and reattaching it immediately. Trying to flee, the girl is caught and put to sleep by Roger as the young man tries to run them down. With a mere glance, Roger shoves the man back with such power that he's thrown into the next car, though recovers just as quickly. As Roger runs along the top of the train to get away, the young man shows off his unique trick of being able to turn into different monsters, and while this surprises Roger, it's still no match for him. As Roger prepares to finish him off, a bright light comes out from the girl, distracting and blinding him long enough for the young man to rush in and punch Roger directly in the face. Staggering Roger, the young man quickly grabs the girl and leaps away into the Chinese countryside, escaping for now. Safe for now, the girl wakes up but is frightened by the young man as well, though as he follows her, a strange voice in his head seizes him with the message to protect her, and this hasn't been the first time. He catches up to her and calms her down, revealing he is led by a mysterious clairvoyant voice in his head that led him to her and introduces himself as Yuri. The girl replies back that she is Alice Elliot. That night, as Alice sleeps, Yuri guards her, though a man in a fox mask appears before him, startling him. He explains it's thanks to the girl's power that he's even here, as she has opened the gate of eternal darkness with her unique power. Looking to Yuri, he claims the ghost sealed inside his head beckon him to devour Yuri, as he turns into a demon himself and knocks him out. As Yuri wakes up, he's alone in a strange graveyard, sour at his circumstances, and expanding his power to equip souls and fuse them with his own, transforming into that monster. He encounters a set of masks that speak to him, who address his skill set as that of a harmonixer, and reveals this world is a reflection of the darkness in his heart. They chuckle that for every monster he strikes down, more malice grows in his heart from their vengeance, and they wait for the peak when the Grim Reaper will be born into the world of the living from that energy. Yuri dismisses it, claiming he's in control, as he's been monster hunting for over a decade looking to avenge his parents, though some part of him wants to believe his father still lives. Regardless, they show him a means of purifying the darkness that builds up in his heart, though tell him he'll still lose eventually. He's called out of the nightmare by Alice, though the next time he hears the mysterious voice, Alice states she can hear it too, and notes she doesn't sense any evil from it, so feels it's safe to trust its warnings. As they approach an isolated village, an odd pair of red-eyed and yellow-eyed boys spot Alice and eagerly allow them in. Looking around the village, something seems off when Alice discovers these villagers have been eating all of the humans here, learning that ever since the Black Tortoise Guardian left, the dogs and cats have devoured the people here and become evil spirits. As they hurry to escape the true cursed village, they run into a curious pair examining a seal that is trapping them all here. The adept introduces himself as Zhu Zhen, a master exorcist and spirit healer, and the wanderer next to him is Mei Yuan, an acupuncturist who is a master at raising weapon proficiency. They were hired by the adjacent village to investigate and purify this one, and thinks they should work together to defeat the cause of the seal on this village gate. With Zhu Zhen's knowledge and experience, they are easily able to take care of the dark influence, and Zhu Zhen is impressed by the duo's competence. He also notes there was someone taking advantage of the villagers and spirits here, and Alice wonders if it was Roger Bacon, the warlock that tried to kidnap her before. Zhu Zhen notes the name of the legendary alchemist, but notes he isn't the one behind the events of this village, at least not directly. He warns them while their gifts are rare and powerful, do not flaunt them, else they will be taken advantage of or mislabeled as demons, especially Yuri. As they can finally leave, Zhuzhen goes on his way, confident the strange events surrounding them will bring them together again. At the same time, Lieutenant Colonel Kawashima is investigating the slaughter of the Japanese soldiers on the train, thinking Alice is the one who did it, and begins her search with the army. Elsewhere, Roger appears before Dehuai, a sage who protects Shanghai from outsiders but also wishes to rule it and turn it into a city of monsters. Roger claims he is interested in helping Dehuai accomplish the ritual to achieve this, and thus why he went to abduct the key, which is Alice. Dehuai does not completely buy Roger's intentions, but regardless continues with his preparations, as earlier he had sealed the Black Tortoise to the north to prevent any meddling. He tells Roger where Alice is now and mentions how the Japanese army is also hunting her. As Roger takes his leave, he mentions there is a Harmonixer protecting the girl, and to this, Dehuai is suddenly concerned, as 15 years ago he had an unfortunate incident involving one. Making their way to the city of Thangtian, they notice a puppy they call Tiny has been following them, and find the Japanese army is already there, though the Russians in the city dislike their presence, including one alluring Russian spy. Alice and Yuri accidentally get caught up in one of her bombs as they hear a wanted notice citywide, and once the Japanese army comes in, the spy slips away, and they follow her route to escape as well. She introduces herself as Marguerite, and as they fight through the sewers, they emerge outside an airstrip. At this time, the tiny dog following them reveals itself to be Dehuai himself, here to take the girl. As they defeat his beast, Marguerite reveals she knows of Dehuai, but first steals an old plane for them all to fly out in, just as Kawashima comes in too late to catch them herself. As they travel beyond their pursuers, Yuri reflects on how his father was a Japanese colonel and his mother was a Russian named Anne, but is snapped awake as their plane breaks down and they are forced to crash land. Fortunately, they crash outside the port of Dalian, but unfortunately, the port is under the curse of an evil spirit, and at night Alice is struck by her deadly magic. As fate would have it, Zhuzhen has been called in to purify this village too, greeting the group again. Wishing to save Alice as well, he leads another exorcism, noting that in this village they used to worship the blue dragon in its shrine nearby, but a month ago the dragon was sealed, and since then the village has been cursed. Yuri sees it's the same as the other village and wonders if Dehuai is behind this too, and Zhuzhen confirms this, noting it's clear his target is Alice. As Alice recovers, the sage asks her thoughts on this, and Alice replies back in France her father was murdered and his last words said dark warlocks were trying to bring about the valorization and she was the key. Zhuzhen recognizes this as a nightmare that Dehuai attempted 15 years ago that brought about disasters worldwide, but fortunately, one man sacrificed himself to stop the valorization and destroy half of Dehuai's body. Wanting to stop the Demon Gate invocation and tired of running, Yuri suggests they go to Shanghai and stop Dehuai now. Alice agrees, but with the Japanese army everywhere, they're unsure of how to travel. Just then, Kawashima, disguised as a smuggler, offers to take them there by boat, and though her timing is awfully suspicious, they take her up on her offer to take them to Shanghai. As they set sail, it turns out Yuri is the seasick type, and Kawashima is beginning to doubt they were the vile ones who slaughtered the soldiers on the train. She comments on Dehuai, noting that 15 years ago he tried to use the ultimate Taoist magic to destroy Japan, but her father once told her a Japanese colonel in Black Ops stopped it at the last minute. Privately, Alice tells Yuri she senses a growing dark shadow looming over him, but he claims everything's fine, and in fact hasn't heard the mysterious voice in quite some time. Though, he grimly mentions that if evil spirits ever do completely take him over, then she needs to make sure she kills him without hesitation. They are interrupted by an update that something is causing the boat to sail in the same circle over and over, but there's nothing wrong with the boat. Zhuzhen exorcises the spirit plaguing them, but as it turns out, Dehuai appears personally to take credit for causing this to begin with. Quickly, he looks over both Alice and Yuri, but leaves before they can take any action. On his own, he recognizes the pair of Yuri and Zhuzhen are indeed a real threat to his plan, and so he brings in his student, Wugui, to kill the two guardians of Alice. Dehuai's preparations are ready except for the key, and so he commands Wugui to get her, though warns him not to underestimate the Harmonixer. As the group makes it safely to Shanghai, Zhuzhen reflects back to 15 years ago where he fell defeated at the feet of Wugui as the underling repeated that the Demon Gate invocation will allow Dehuai to wipe out Japan and send a clear message to the Western countries to stay out of theirs. Zhuzhen scoffed, stating such power was too unwieldy and it was all too easy to destroy the world with it. Stepping in, Japanese Colonel Hyuga revealed he was a Harmonixer, transforming into the mighty Chernobog and easily beating down Wugui, telling him to run back to Dehuai. Hyuga helps Zhuzhen recover, as now Zhuzhen reveals to Alice that Hyuga was Yuri's father. At the same time, Kawashima reports in to Lieutenant Sukatani, who tells her an agent from the Tokyo Investigative Committee is examining everyone and she should be mindful of that. Otherwise, his spies have gathered that Dehuai is missing a few things for the Demon Gate invocation, as he needs the catalyst, Alice, and still needs to banish the White Tiger God that is blocking the ceremony. Sukatani shares that he's sent troops to Wuhan to secure the final shrine, but something is wiping them all out. Fortunately, Dehuai is struggling with the monsters there too, and smirking, Kawashima thinks to fight monsters with another monster. Meanwhile, Zhuzhen tries to visit his old friend Zhen in Shanghai, only to find Wugui took over his friend's old business, showing off Dehuai's control over the city. Wugui surrounds and challenges Zhuzhen, and though they duel, a student of Dehuai shows off some new tricks with deadly effect. Falling defeated at the feet of Wugui, Yuri now catches up to Zhuzhen, stepping in to protect the old man. With the power of darkness protecting him, Yuri reveals he is the Harmonixer Wugui was warned about, and easily beats down the underling, telling him to run back to Dehuai. Zhuzhen notes this feels like deja vu, and reveals now to everyone, including Yuri, that his father, Hyuga, once saved his life as well as Zhen's, and afterwards, Zhen traveled with him and opened up this business. Yuri's upset Zhuzhen kept such a fact secret this entire time, and reluctantly, Zhuzhen reveals it's because Hyuga died because of him. 15 years ago, Hyuga and Zhuzhen worked together to stop the valorization, and Hyuga put his life on the line to stop it and save everyone. Yuri bitterly accepts this, and Zhen shares that Dehuai is likely targeting Wuhan, where Master Sifa is. Zhuzhen agrees, but doubts his old teacher will go down that easily. Regardless, they are in a race against time now, and Yuri and Alice are determined to stop the ritual too. Just then, Kawashima comes in disguised as a smuggler again, overhearing the conversation and adding that both Dehuai and the Japanese military have sent new forces to claim Wuhan. Marguerite still finds her awfully suspicious, but they can use all the help they can get as Kawashima agrees to help get them there. Arriving at the temple, they are greeted by a servant of the master who still insists on testing a former pupil, as Yuri is paired with Zhuzhen. After they finish their trial, Yuri asks him to tell him more about his father, as all he can remember is him working on the farm and the fox mask he bought him at a festival. Zhuzhen relates how he was a good man and a true friend, and together they pass the trials and meet with Master Sifa. Suddenly, the master's servant becomes possessed by Dehuai, allowing him to sneak behind Sifa's seals, and he lands a sneak attack on all of them and quickly steals Alice. Sifa uses the last of his life energy to revive the group and send them ahead to rescue the girl. As the shrine collapses from the attack, Wugui is there to block their escape, but as they defeat him together, Roger now comes in, blasts Yuri back, and quickly retrieves Wugui. When Yuri wakes up, he's safely back in Shanghai thanks to Kawashima, who is revealed to be part of the Japanese army. Though Yuri is outraged regardless, she assures him Alice is safe, as she is too important to Dehuai to be harmed before the ritual. She apologizes for the deception before, but after watching them, she declares her intent to be their allies. Zhuzhen isn't keen to help the army as their main goal is invading Shanghai too, but Yuri is most concerned with saving Alice and defeating Dehuai regardless of the cost. The group turns to leave immediately as Kawashima still intends to support them, though the investigation committee's Major Kutsugi arrests Sukatani and intends to capture Kawashima on suspicion of treason. The group hears the only way into Dehuai's tower is through the Lock Yuan Gate and notices the increased Japanese army presence. They are approached by Sergeant Kato, Kawashima's subordinate, who tells them Sukatani was murdered by the army. They're hunting Kawashima next, and reveals the location of the key they need. Returning to the inn, Yuri walks in on Kutsugi looking to kill Kawashima and mentions her father already adopted a new daughter to train, but Yuri easily defeats his men as the Major escapes. Kawashima thanks him, and though the group still will not ally with her, she tells them she will seriously pray for their success. As the group visits Wugui's hideout in Kowloon, they discover Roger has been conducting strange black magic and voodoo experiments here, and did not rescue Wugui so much as grab him for use in such experiments. Destroying the soulless vessel of the former gang boss, Roger sighs at the loss and leaves for now. Key in hand, the party breaches Dehuai's tower, noting what a beautiful Yuan gate it is, and immediately seizes his important documents for research purposes. Confronting Dehuai, Zhuzhen calls out the shameful display his own brother has shown twice now, but Dehuai proclaims they are too late to stop the ritual now. As his machine saps Alice of her life force, he reveals a seraphic radiance will be summoned, and Zhuzhen catches this isn't the Demon's Gate invocation, and instead something more powerful. They duel, but Dehuai is just stalling for time, for as soon as the tower is filled with enough energy, he breaks away. They free Alice, but she has little life energy left, though at this time the mysterious voice chimes in for the first time in a while, bathing her in a light that completely restores her. Bolstered, the group advances, while Kawashima and the troops loyal to her break into the tower too. Atop the tower, they witness Dehuai accepting the full power of the ritual, declaring himself a god, but despite the power of his new form, is still defeated by the efforts of the group. As Dehuai dies, Roger Bacon now appears, amused at the failed ambition, and steps in to complete the reverse Demon's Gate invocation. As a being of ultimate destruction comes forth, Yuri sees no other option as he dashes towards it, intending to fuse with it, though the risk of being swallowed by the darkness is high. The god seems to calm down with this, but then lashes out in a berserk manner, wiping out Shanghai. Roger laughs, saying this is good for now, but he has an even greater plan, inviting him to visit him in London if they survive. Unfortunately, Shanghai would be reduced to ashes, and as the seraphic radiance would fly away, it would also be the last they saw of Yuri. 6 months later into 1914, Alice and Zhuzhen are traveling together performing exorcist jobs, but they still have not forgotten Yuri, though Zhuzhen is confident that despite being absorbed by a monster, if his soul is still alive, he'll be fine. They take a job from a small village where they fear monsters are coming from a castle that has been abandoned for almost 300 years, and arriving see the village is definitely haunted. Venturing to the castle, they see it's still occupied after all by a very bored vampire that greets them. He shares he was sleeping for the last few centuries, wherein roving bands of demons and monsters have moved into his castle. He casually dismisses any question that they serve him, and notes that like humans, not all vampires are evil. Rather, since he wishes to kill his boredom and save the folks in the village, he offers to help them, introducing himself as Keith. Zhuzhen is cautious, but Keith tells him notions like blood-sucking and weakness to daylight are just rumors, and while they are tough undead, they can still be killed. Going back into town, they learn from a little girl that the mayor is not only the source of the monsters, but commands them too, as he thinks there is treasure in Keith's castle. Defeating the mayor and his corrupted magic, this frees the village, and though Keith thanks them, he asks their help in exorcising the demon in his castle next. He clarifies it as a man who transforms into a demon, and thinking it to be Yuri, they agree. Climbing to the top of the foreboding tower, they are shocked to see Yuri alive after months of searching, but Zhuzhen questions if the seraphic radiance completely consumed his soul. Lunging at them like a madman, the group manages to subdue their possessed friend, and the next thing she knows, Alice finds herself in the graveyard representing the darkness in Yuri's heart. She meets the four masks, who greet her as Yuri's fear, envy, anger, and hate, and inform her Yuri's soul is weary and seeking the release of death. However, determined to save him with her own feelings of love, Alice agrees to exchange the burden of karma on his soul for her own, venturing deeper to speak to his soul. She sees Yuri literally digging a grave for himself as a man with a fox mask comes out, reaffirming Yuri failed to fuse with the seraphic radiance and his soul was devoured. By dying, he can prevent the demon from coming out again, and knows this because he is the embodiment of Yuri's weakness that grips his heart. He punches her down, but seeing this, Yuri wakes from his stupor and begins to fight back. Alice encourages him to accept this part of himself and control it, reminding him he is alive, and rising up to literally fight an inner battle, Yuri conquers the vice on his soul. Seeing behind the mask was just another aspect of Yuri himself, he turns to Alice, back to his normal self. He admits what he did was stupid, but he also states for a moment he thought he won, until he lost the mental battle it brought with it. He also thought the god of death behind the fox mask would have been his father, and not his own weakness. Finally accepting himself, they wake up, as Zhuzhen is surprised and relieved to see Yuri back to normal. Yuri apologizes to Keith for the trouble caused to him, and Keith laughs it off, though now requests to travel with them, knowing it won't be boring with them around, and Yuri welcomes him to the group. Together they return to Prague to meet up with Marguerite again. However, she has left them a message to meet her north of Paris, in Rouen, where Alice reveals this is where her father was killed by Roger. Before they leave, Alice spots a strange spirit haunting the women's restroom, and as she fends her off, she reveals herself as Arcane Olga, mentioning she knows of Roger and promises to see them again. She returns to Roger directly, reporting her encounter, and Roger feels Yuri is stronger than he expected and should prioritize his removal. After all, the fact remains that the soul of the seraphic radiance now remains sealed inside his body now, even if Yuri hasn't discovered his true power yet. To the side, Olga wonders about the witch they are torturing, and Roger notes she is not in any danger, and if anything, still has the upper hand. Arriving in Rouen, they rest and wait for Marguerite, and Yuri revisits inside his heart. The masks inside mock his choice to live, and mention how Alice made a deal earlier to share the load of the karma of his soul in order to save him, and upset to hear this, Yuri swears to protect Alice from them too. Waking up, he finds Alice visiting the spot where her father died, and interrupting, Roger and Olga appear as well, congratulating Yuri on his recovery from the Graveyard of Souls, and knowing Alice had to sell her soul to make it happen. He states he has no interest in fighting today, but Marguerite now shows up just as they take their leave, and she is thrilled to see Yuri back to normal once again. Reconvening, she is introduced to Keith, and they review what they know. Alice starts, mentioning that a year and a half ago she and her father were supposed to meet a warlock allegedly as powerful as Roger, as her father was an exorcist but also ran secret missions for the Vatican. Unfortunately, Roger intercepted them first, and Marguerite now shares her research on Roger Bacon. Apparently, there was a Roger Bacon in England in the 13th century and became a renowned alchemist and warlock. Though considered a peculiar revolutionary by many, he was still viewed as a very upright individual, helping many scholars in the fields of medicine and chemistry. However, in Nuremberg in 1540, he was persecuted during the witch trials and exiled where he hasn't been heard of since. They think now would be a good time to meet the man Father Elliot died trying to meet originally, so they visit the church where Alice recognizes Father Doyle, but he is shocked to see her alive. Traumatized by Roger's attack, he agrees to tell them everything he knows. He starts by mentioning 23 years ago in 1890, 3 secret books of magic were stolen from the Vatican, each containing forbidden secrets of sorcery and alchemy, so their sudden disappearance was a cause for panic. The Vatican called forward their 2 best exorcists, Father Maurice Elliot, Alice's father, and his friend, Father James O'Flaherty. They traveled together, searching for the books until Alice was born, and then they traveled separately. Then, in 1899, Father O'Flaherty disappeared while tracking a book down in Wales. Father Elliot would investigate this personally, running into Roger Bacon and seeing his power, causing even Father Elliot to be afraid. Wanting to prevent the books from becoming defiled, which could cause the legions of hell to be summoned on Earth, Father Elliot tried to discover Roger Bacon's weak point. This would lead to learning of another warlock as powerful as Roger Bacon, a cardinal named Albert Simon, though that meeting would be Father Elliot's last. Asking where Cardinal Simon is now, Father Doyle is about to reveal his location, but he is suddenly struck down by Olga. They fight and chase her away, but before dying, all Father Doyle can reveal is that the Cardinal is in London. Hurrying to the capital city of England, they save an orphan they pass by, but Marguerite notices her wallet was lifted. Discovering they were scammed by the local London Rats gang of children, they learn about their leader named Hallie, whose mother was taken away and so looks after kids who also have no parents. Easily tracking the gang down, Marguerite gets their wallet back and chooses to forgive them, though wonders why they refuse to take refuge in the orphanage. The kids reply they notice every child taken to the orphanage is never seen or heard from again, and here they become monsters. Confused, Hallie himself enters to confirm it's true, and it's very mysterious. He offers to pay them back for saving one of his own, and they ask if he has info on Cardinal Simon. He doesn't, but takes them to someone who might, and they learn he lives in a mansion north of the river. He takes them there, but is shocked to see the mansion of Cardinal Simon is also the rumored orphanage where all the kids have been disappearing from. As they knock on the door, they speak to a man in an eye patch named Jack, who says Cardinal Simon was the previous owner, but he owns this building now and turned it into an orphanage. Returning back to the hideout, they find all the other children missing, and Hallie knows Jack must have somehow taken them and moves to go rescue them. Pausing him, Hallie reveals his frustration, releasing explosively powerful psychic energy that he cannot fully control, and believes this to be the reason his mother abandoned him. Yuri, having also grown up an orphan, sympathizes and agrees to help Hallie as together everyone returns to the mansion. Masterfully unlocking the doors within, they find Jack as a doctor dabbling in the dark arts to bring his mother back to life through occult means, and received a strange book personally from Roger Bacon. As it turns out, he was given the emigre document and has since begun live experiments to transfer his soul into a living vessel, often resulting in a monster. Confronting Jack, Hallie's powers go wild and it subdues everyone in the room. Just then, the mysterious voice again calls out, this time to Hallie, urging him to calm down, and Hallie is surprised to recognize the voice as that of his missing mother. Foiled in his best attempt, Jack attempts to rip into the group, but Hallie's PK fighting spirit defeats the London murderer. Saving the kidnapped orphans, they return to Hallie's hideout, where Yuri is curious to learn more about the mysterious voice that has followed him for years. Reflecting on his mother, Hallie shares he inherited his powers from her, but others have accused them of being monsters. One day, the Friar Knight Inquisition came to persecute his mother as a witch, and despite only using her powers to help those possessed by ghosts or cure injuries, they locked her up in a mental hospital. She surrendered peacefully in exchange for Hallie's safety, but he still thinks people's fear of his unchecked power caused the problems to begin with. Alice wonders how there's an Inquisition in this day and age, but Yuri promises Hallie he'll rescue his mother, as she is locked up within the same city. Venturing to the Kalios Mental Hospital, Yuri notes it's less a hospital and more a fortress, and within, Friar Knight Inquisitor Rausen speaks with Roger that their expected guests have arrived. As the group cuts through the wardens, they confront Inquisitor Rausen and destroy him easily, as Hallie hurries ahead to free his mother. Finally coming face to face with her, he sees she has been tortured to the point of losing her voice. Roger and Olga now enter, and though Hallie does his best to protect his mother, he is easily batted aside. Yuri catches up, and Roger explains he has been researching deep arcane magic of his own to cleanse the world and create a new Eden, and Hallie's mother is the key to that. Just like how Alice is the key of light, embodying positive magic, Hallie's mother is the key of darkness. Blowing Yuri away, Roger begins to torture Hallie in front of his struggling mother, but breaking free, the woman releases her own psychic power, speaking to everyone and exposing the fact that the man before them is not actually the real Roger Bacon. Hissing back, the imposter spits out the woman's identity as the powerful medium Koudelka. Koudelka thanks Yuri for making the long journey here, but says he now needs to visit an old man in Wales and asks Yuri to take care of her son. She agrees to go along with the fake Roger in exchange for avoiding a fight here, though after they leave, Olga tries and fails to make another attempt to kill the group as they finally destroy the hag. Recovering, Hallie is sulking at failing to rescue his mother, but Yuri refuses to allow him to pity himself, declaring his intent to follow Koudelka's request. Alice suddenly recalls how on the night her father died, her father recognized the man calling himself Roger Bacon and leaves on her own to double check something. As Hallie now collects himself, he wishes to join the group and control his power, and elsewhere, Alice confirms that the man pretending to be Roger Bacon is actually Cardinal Albert Simon. Albert now appears before her, confirming this as he was actually once a student to the real Roger Bacon. She also suspects Albert concealed his identity from them by using Olga in her disguises to kill her father. He confirms this too, stating he had to have her rare power that only appeared once every century. Though, by using Koudelka as a different key, he finds he can still continue his plan. He explains further that he despises the world order of the elite constantly oppressing everything that threatens their power, and is motivated by revenge against the dead. Politely, he takes his leave, and as Alice returns, the group makes their way to Wales. Hallie recalls how Koudelka told him about a man named Patrick in Wales who bought a monastery and tried to raise the dead, but they turned into monsters, similar to the orphanage. Finding the old ruined monastery, they find Father O'Flaherty's grave, and they are approached by a strange old man who turns out to be the real immortal alchemist, Roger Bacon. They say they were sent here by Koudelka, and he invites them inside his futuristic lab to talk more. He explains how he knows Koudelka and the events of the previous game, and Yuri says Jack tried to do the same with the emigre document in London. Alice mentions Albert stole the 3 magical books, and is likely the one who sold it to Patrick, starting the events Koudelka lived through. Roger also recognizes the name Albert Simon, as centuries ago he was his best student. Rising from the bottom of society, he worked hard and gained acclaim, but along the way saw many injustices in the world, especially the elites against the masses, and refused the notion that a person's status was determined by birth. Growing impatient at even Roger, Albert tried to report him to the Vatican, but it was he who was condemned a heretic for his progressive ideals and locked up. In truth, Roger agreed with Albert's philosophy, but also was realistic to know his dream of a perfectly equal world was a far-off fantasy. Such a vision would require education of the populace and time for them to change their mindsets, so Albert's ideal was just ahead of its time. Since then, Albert changed and dove deep into the dark arts. Either way, they don't have a lot of time and he agrees to help them. He brings them to a spot where Koudelka sealed a powerful spirit, showing them a door marked with an illustration of the soul called the Judgment Ring, and indicates at the end of the path they will find both Albert and Koudelka. Delving in and dashing up the ornate stairs, they confront Albert, who greets them and shares more of his story. He confesses to stealing the 3 secret books and describes the first book, the Pulse Tract, with the ability to command the earth veins in order to summon an ancient god. It was with this book Dehuai woke the Seraphic Radiance, though it ended up somehow getting sealed within Yuri. Next was the Emigre document, able to create life from nothing and can be used to summon a god of death. Though both Patrick in the monastery and Jack in the orphanage failed, making only soulless puppets. Lastly, there was the Codex of Luri, able to summon the other god, which is what he is trying to do now. While his endgame is wiping out all life in order to create a better world without social inequalities, he mentions he is doing so because of a terrible vision of the future he had in which a few elites will summon a behemoth that will end countless lives and ruin the world. He is working to avoid a terrible future by making a better world order, and begins the final steps of the ritual, channeling Koudelka as the key. However, Koudelka flares out with power, ending the ritual and surprising Albert as she turns to him, telling him he not only cannot defeat her, but she is going to drag him into the dark void. She has no intention of letting the world end with her son in it, but is surprised to find Albert is protected by a soul contract with Amon, Master of Destruction. Albert then hurries to continue the ritual, and this time Yuri steps up to challenge him, as Albert teases he is not the only one with the power of fusion. Fighting through the normal and transformed state of the ambitious former Cardinal, Yuri and group defeat him as the Harmonixer strips him of the soul of Amon and absorbs it into himself. Losing the soul contract, Albert may have lost this battle, but he did not lose everything, as the energy of their battles supplied what he needed to complete the ritual. A cosmic scale spell circle opens up as a beacon shoots out into the heavens, as Albert cheers his success after 400 years of preparation, as a floating castle rises from the depths of the ocean, ready to receive God. Regrouping with Roger, Koudelka is fine but resting, and Roger explains the castle, called Neem, is a legacy left behind by one of the greater beings who once visited this planet long ago. There are dozens of similar things left behind by these same beings, though none of them are easily controlled by humans, and this one's purpose is to act as a beacon to God millions of light years away. Their only hope now is to destroy the float inside of Neem before God arrives, and Roger prepares his teleporting machine so they can arrive there instantly. In the meanwhile, Hallie catches up with his mother, as they haven't seen each other for 3 years, and after this final fight, he has her promise they'll take a boat to America to meet his father together. Yuri thanks Koudelka for guiding him as the mysterious voice and saving Alice as well, but wonders why only his head hurt when she spoke. The medium replies it's because of all the monsters sealed up inside of him, terrified all at once every time she used her power on him. She then reminds him he's protected by another power now, and compliments Alice on how strong she's gotten, that she can even carry the burden of her loved one too. She affirms the curse may be strong, but has no doubt Yuri will protect her. On their own, Alice asks Yuri if he regrets their hard journey so far, and he tells her he wasn't enjoying life at all until he met her. His life and terrible power now have a purpose in protecting her, and he's happy to do it. He tells her the story of how one night he was with his mother when monsters sent by Dehuai broke into their home to kill them. With a single blow, they would strike down and kill his mother, enraging him into awakening his Harmonixer ability with explosive power, slaughtering every monster there. Since then, he always carried the guilt of not protecting his mother, and swears that the day he fails to protect Alice will be the day he dies. Turning, he confesses his feelings for her, and she responds with her love as well, though Zhuzhen interrupts their moment with a spellbook he found on Father O'Flaherty's grave. Within his graveyard of souls, Yuri notices there is a tombstone with Alice's name on it now, and later gets a letter relaying what happened to Kawashima in Shanghai. After the destruction of Shanghai, Kawashima succeeded in securing the city for Japan, and she never stopped wishing the best for the group and was envious of Yuri's freedom. Sergeant Kato would mention to her his new interest in magic and also confess his love for her, but the army would come in and execute her as she no longer had any political protection in the army anymore since her father abandoned her. She would die in Kato's arms as he would fall into depression, and rebel factions in Shanghai would soon break out to oppose the Japanese occupation. Marguerite also confesses that at first she was trying to use Yuri to benefit her country like the Japanese were, as the world's superpowers were building up their armed forces, but over time really respected Yuri's honest way of living and wanted something like that for herself. Finally, Alice finds herself in Yuri's graveyard of souls, also finding her grave, and the four masks greet her, ready to collect her debt to them from their deal earlier. Accepting this, she is greeted by Atman, the executioner of spirit sacrifice, and has no regrets as it claims her soul. Waking up, she keeps her experience to herself and privately reflects how along the journey with Yuri, her appreciation and respect for his virtues blossomed into love despite his obvious faults. Within Yuri's heart, he is surprised to find his father, who has been acting as the seal for the Seraphic Radiance this entire time. He gives his regards and offers to test him for control of it, as by defeating him, Yuri will conquer and obtain the power of the gods. Accepting, the father and son duel, with Yuri winning and gaining not only the ultimate power for a Harmonixer, but his father's approval as a man. Making sure to also collect the finest underwear, the group's preparations are complete. Teleporter ready, the group is transported to Neem instantly and marvel at the bizarre innards of the castle. As they fight their way through, Alice gradually grows paler and weaker, and this is noticed by everyone as her condition quickly deteriorates. She tries her best to hide it from Yuri, but Marguerite figures her out immediately. Alice admits to her she exchanged her life for his in order to save his soul earlier, and she is almost out of time until the deal closes, but wants to spend as much time as she can now with him. Finally confronting Albert, Yuri asks what he intends to do if he wins, and Albert replies he will continue to make a world free of impurity, and both sides agree this will be the final battle. Together, Yuri the final Harmonixer, Alice the prodigy exorcist, Zhuzhen the master sage, Marguerite the cunning spy, Keith the easygoing vampire, and Hallie the young psychic combine their strengths to defeat the final evolution of a man who coveted the throne of God. As Albert falls for the final time, he laments the grim future ahead, but thinks their strength shows the power of humanity may be enough to overcome their mistakes. With the last of his power, he sends them ahead to the throne of God so that they may choose the path of the future themselves. Standing atop the stratosphere, the group is met by an alien life form they question is really God, but the creature's power is undeniable. Working together to protect the world their way, they defeat the creature, alongside destroying Neem, removing the beacon to the heavens instantly. As the game ends, Alice reflects that the god summoned by human hands was defeated by human hands, and with that their journey has finally come to an end. The friends would go their separate ways now, as Keith saw enough of the outside world and would return to sleep in his castle. Zhuzhen would return to Shanghai to mend the energy disruptions in China. Marguerite would go back to Paris, but swiftly move on to her next assignment. As promised, Hallie would set sail to America with Koudelka to find his long-lost father and live together as a family. Alice and Yuri would travel back to Zurich, though as they sleep on the train ride there, Alice would die peacefully beside Yuri, who would wake up to the tragic discovery and swear to keep on living for the sake of the one he loves. Not long after, the world would be changed forever, as an assassination of the Prince of the Austro-Hungarian Empire would escalate into World War I. Shadow Hearts has enjoyed the success of selling over 280,000 copies worldwide.